there's a
where you can get a hoagie at the gas
where
station.
there's a memorial. There's something that got turned into an Instagram experience that used to employ people. All the things that make up rural America, worse than ever. But they still have those suburbs. And if you talk to Republicans, they're like, well, that will mitigate some of these losses. Like we're not going to, maybe we can't flip Portland anymore. Or Bush could compete in some suburbs that we're so hated because of Trump that we're not going to. But and this is Republicans, but we don't need to. So I think the Democrats have more money and more excitement than they did other times when they've been in really bad shape. It's all relative. Like this time, 2010, boy, even though the president was more popular, just their voters did not care. We're not going to show up, and we're not giving money.
Well, then I would like to turn to the flip side, which is the vibe among the Republican voters, and I guess along the lines of what you were just saying, I guess the conventional wisdom, especially if you're just scrolling Twitter, is that the Democrats are going to get creamed in the midterms, just based again, as I was saying earlier, and you kind of put some nuance on of the Biden polling numbers. But is this going as well for the GOP as it might seem at first glance? One thing that I saw that I thought was interesting were the results from recent elections in Wisconsin about school boards, where a lot of these people running on real hardcore GOP school board censorship, anti LGBT shit, did not quite go as well as they thought. This is from the Wisconsin Examiner. In Eau Claire, all three board candidates who ran on anti LGBT platforms lost to the incumbents and their allies. The three conservative candidates stoked controversy about a teacher training program they claimed excluded parents from conversations about their child's gender and identity and sexual orientation. This became a topic on Fox News. They all lost. Similar results in, oh God, in Beloit, La Crosse, even I think in Green Bay. So, are these issues that the GOP is trying to make a cornerstone, the things that I referenced from that MSNBC tweet earlier, are they playing as well as they could be, or the GOP wants them to?
Uh, I'm glad you brought up Wisconsin because they have underperformed in some of those places where the trends are going their way. Their big coup in Wisconsin that day was there's a well, one they won the Kenosha executive, which was Kenosha. There has been a backlash to the riot there in 2020. They pulled that off and they won this judicial seat, which it's just drawn to be pretty Republican. So they won that. But you're right, it was pretty mixed. I'd say if probably 6 months ago or before Afghanistan, I was more bullish on Democrats having an okay midterm, just because all these things we're talking about now, they're not really actionable. They're not a thing. Like no member of Congress, no Democratic member of Congress is coming home and saying, "I'm going to teach your kids. I'm going to put all these explicit books in school because I know it freaks you out." They're not really doing it. So you had conservative activism focused on stuff that the real hardcore ideologues were interested in, and that's still the case. And that's not where most voters are. It's just that voters can be convinced, if something's happening that's so crazy that nothing works anymore, so the school's less good than it used to be, and the dollar's worth less than it used. It needs to be connected to something. There
Mm-hmm.
aren't really people turning out and saying, "I used to be a Democrat, but I'm so angry that a teacher who's gay had a TikTok saying she was gay." That stuff does feel like people who like Chris Rufo and some other people who had incredible success in the anti-CRT thing are kind of trying to get into a side gig and make it about that. I don't think that's clicked quite as much yet. It's all the other stuff. I mean, if that was happening in a environment where the economy was like what it was in summer 2019, I don't know if it'd be connecting the same way, because everybody, as soon as anybody wins anything, they're like, well, that's what did it. All of my pet issue is the reason that we won this thing.
Mm-hmm.
Like Virginia's another good example. You go back and look at the data. It wasn't that a bunch of parents were so angry that they switched over. The electorate was just a lot more white and rural than it usually is. Those guys who vote for Trump and nobody else could be convinced to vote for Youngkin. That's the moment. News cycles change. What really scared the Democrats I cover is thinking, oh, well, we have a better electorate that we used to, that turns out, but they have an even better one, and their one is motivated on stuff we're not doing. Like no, that they're going home and saying, "Here's the money I brought back for the bridge," and the question that like the Fox News viewer is getting is like, "What are you doing about the pedo tunnels under Disney?" Which is a literal thing people have brought up to me when I've been talking to them, and so that's where it's so confusing them. It's like the Republicans are chasing something that's probably not where most people's heads are at, but they're angry enough about other stuff that they're willing to go along with it, and then they say, "Up, the lesson of this is we're the school book restricting movement right now." Yeah, and could you think of a better issue to like motivate that PMC person at home who doesn't have that much skin in the game? Like the
Mhm.
idea that the school somewhere is going to ban Toni Morrison. I mean, it is. There's a lot of these issues where Democrats are just kind of trapped in a room with Republicans and they want to win the argument. It's not clear that anyone cares. Anyone who could be persuaded cares. The people who are persuaded were like, "Could you shut up and make it so that like I have a child tax credit again?"
Do you have any takes on that, Matt?
Well, that raises the interesting question. So the Republicans are, as the losing party for the last election and midterm, usually are more motivated.
Mhm.
The economic headwinds, as they like to say, are pushing against the incumbents. But the other big thing that's suggestive of a wipeout is this huge collapse in Biden's approval among younger people.
Mhm.
This possibility of just a massive, not switch to Republicans, but rather just a decision to stay home. And the question is, does the fact that the Republicans plan for keeping their base whipped up involve pressing all of the most sensitive culture war buttons that young people do, the young Democrats anyway, are committed to? Will that be enough to get them to overcome their disappointment and resentment of Brandon and the Democrats, and to imagine that there are stakes enough to vote in the midterm? And I don't know. I'm not sure.
I don't know.
The
Yeah.
Republicans do love overplaying their hands.
Oh yeah, and they think that they're winning. I mean, a lot of the trans politics is it's not that they think we found a great thing on the floor and we're upset. It's that they think we can if we freak people out about everyone becoming low T and transgender, then we're going to get a lot of votes. That's the thought behind it. But you're right. That's not really where everybody's head is at the moment. I do think that helps a lot of people I'm talking about motivate themselves to turn out. Like well, Biden's not in the ballot. I don't want these people to win. I mean, that was the whole McAuliffe campaign at the end. Was, do you really want these people to win? And it failed, but it failed again less miserably than what they've done
Right.
in the past. So
Which might point towards
yeah,
what Felix said a
yeah,
couple episodes ago. They lose the House and Senate if no for no other reason than they don't really have any leeway there. So they're
yeah.
likely to lose the Senate with and the House if there's any partisan Republican edge to the electorate or to the outcome anyway. But that won't be a complete annihilation. And would you think that would you say, I don't like to do predictions, but I'm happy to ask you to do predictions. Right now, does it feel to you more like a wipeout is coming, or a more middle of the bell curve, sort of pro opposition party midterm?
I think it would be a wipeout if Republicans got out of their way, and in some places they are. I mean, I feel that there's stuff that went Democratic by 10, 15 points that will be in play just because of enough voters are switching over, and which kind of voters are they? So if there's a district that's like there's one Colorado 7th district. Watch this flip, and I look stupid. But that one's just like everyone there has a college degree, basically. And Republicans are saying we're going to compete for it, but it's really tough. And then there are seats where, like in Nevada, where the electorate is Hispanic and white voters without college degrees, and those groups are both like done with this. So I feel like there's going to be potential wipeouts in places that were drawn to be safe for Democrats because of who is voting. I hate using well. Let's not do this. Let's not do the weasel thing where it's like, well, if it was held today. I just feel like that trend has been happening for a year. So if the people who if the electorate looks like 2014. That was a really small one. Um, Even they'd be losing differently than they would lose this under this electorate. There's a lot of people who were fine with voting Democratic until like 6 months ago, but they live in different kinds of places. I mean, even this Florida electoral map that they're trying to finish up is getting attention because the rest of the redistricting was not that great for Republicans. A combination of lawsuits and just there's so many suburbanites who don't want to vote Republican that there's not that much more they can gain. Like if you push them, they're like, yeah, on the current map, there's maybe 15 seats we should be able to flip. But if things get really crazy, we're going to be competing for the deep blue place that nobody had bothered spending money in that moved 30 points toward Biden. They think those could be in play because the Biden coalition is weird. I said that before. It's probably a better word. It is like everyone from most DSA members to Bill Kristol, and they want different stuff. Like it is really like I'm going to suck it down and vote for. And a lot of those people are I'm going to suck it up and vote for Joe Biden